Welcome one and all. Step right up and get your tickets for another moment in gaming history.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome officially to the channel. This is a series where I go into various different moments in video game history, and today I want to talk about the early origins of the rhythm game genre itself. I know we've talked about this a lot on the channel, primarily in the Oddity series because a lot of these came with various different specific controllers. But it's time we look back at one of the earliest rhythm video games. Not to be confused with rhythm games themselves, that would owe most of their electronic origins to something like Simon Says. This is about as early as I found, because today we're going to go back to the days of the Nintendo Entertainment System and a title just known as Dance Aerobics. Yeah, I know, you wouldn't have thought aerobics would be a rhythm game, and yet, here we are. So if you have a moment, hang out while we jump into the world of Dance Aerobics? Dance Aerobics, also known as Aerobics Studio in Japan, was a game made by Human Entertainment and released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in either 1987 if you're in Japan, or 1989 in the United States. It was designed for use with the Nintendo Power Pad. The Power Pad was a mat-like device that plugged into your Nintendo Entertainment System and had roughly 12 pressure pads. The idea was to use those buttons from anything from casual party games, track games, playing as a street cop, and no, I'm not kidding, all the way to Dance Aerobics. Now, Dance Aerobics featured 3 distinct modes. Normal mode, where the player begins one of 4 different aerobics classes and plays through them, eventually unlocking an additional 4 classes. In this game, the player would follow the instructions of the teacher, stepping on the appropriate buttons on the pad as the music plays. The player's score would start at 100 and decrease by 10 for each mistake, only going up again if the player completed routines properly. The next set of games was Pad Antics mode. In this mode you had a few games, one called Tune Up, which in this game had the 2 central buttons on the pad disabled. This allowed the player to stand on them while they used the surrounding 10 buttons, which are assigned to different musical notes. This works how you would expect, allowing the player to make free-form music by stepping on the notes in any particular order. The next game was called Map Melodies, where again the player stands in the center as the game plays a short song. The player is then tasked with hitting the appropriate buttons in the right order to play the tune back. Think of it like a NES version of Simon Says. The last one was a mode called Ditto. This game will play music and calls out instructions to the player whether or not to use a hand or a foot to press the appropriate pad. And if you think this sounds like Twister when you hear this description, yeah, it's basically Twister. The last mode was known as Aerobics mode. This was a lot like the Dance Aerobics mode, only in this one if your score goes down to 0, it frankly doesn't matter. You can keep trying to mimic the moves in line with the music, but there's no level progression in this mode, and no way of opening up any new content. Think of it like a no-fail mode for Beat Saber or some other game. As far as reception, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, the Power Pad was something almost every kid wanted to some extent or another, and it was fairly popular in its own right. Given how few games came out for it, I imagine this had an audience, even if it was just adults trying to get into shape. Influence-wise, I'd have to say it was more than solid. This would have set a lot of groundwork for games like Parappa the Rapper, Dance Dance Revolution, among another number of rhythm games that would just either have you following along with the tempo with buttons, or even come with their own custom controllers. However, what do you guys think of this one? Do you know an earlier rhythm game than this, and if so, what was it? Did any of you ever have the Power Pad, and if so, how many games did you have for it? Did you ever have and mess with this game? Let me know in the comments. For now though, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. If I could ask you for one more favor, please leave this video a like. And if you haven't, consider subscribing, that really helps me out a lot. As always, thank you one last time, and until next time, happy gaming.